So a few years ago, I was in a relationship. We met the first couple weeks of grad school in New York. And I remember that time as being electric. Everything was super exciting. When I met my ex, he felt like the opposite of every other man in my life. So dependable, polite, I think I thought it was respectful, but it was more just decorum sort of stuff that he would do. I don't know, opening doors, bullshit like that. That doesn't really mean anything, but it was different for me, so I thought it did. Looking at the relationships that I sort of grew up around, there was just so much lying and cheating, and I didn't, I knew that was all bad, but I didn't really also at the same time have a positive example of a relationship to kind of look at. So I thought, oh, this is it. This is so positive. This is it seems like the opposite. So let's run with this sort of thing. We met, we started dating, we moved in together, eventually got out of school, and I didn't realize the level to which I was incapable of saying what I wanted, much less what I needed. My parents are divorced. I didn't have a super close relationship with my dad. I didn't really think about it that much to kind of see what it was. There weren't very many sort of close, positive role models, male role models in my life, nor were there very many healthy relationships sort of in my immediate family. So I thought I was just okay, there was a lot of pain and bullshit back there. I'm just gonna close the door and step into this new grad school thing, this bright, shiny new world. I didn't sort of consider or realize that even though I was 3,000 miles away from home, my issues were with me, completely. You don't just, this was how I sort of learned to survive and interact with the world. And I didn't realize that it was in my emotional DNA, sort of, if you will, at that point. Anyway, so met my ex and had no idea that I didn't know how to say what I wanted, that I had so much trouble articulating what I needed, or even if I had any problems. I didn't realize that I had abandonment issues to the level that I did, and how presently and actively they affected the life I was living day to day, sort of thing. And then all of a sudden it was 2 years in, we were living together in Brooklyn, working, we'd moved, and I was deeply unhappy and kind of scrap, clawing and desperately somehow day to day worrying and trying to ensure he didn't have any reasons to leave me, kind of I know it doesn't sound great. I don't like saying it. But it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense unless you've been there, sort of, and developed and sort of wired these pathways of abandonment, attachment that make, I don't know. For me, it felt like if I had lost him, it would have been the most terrible thing in the world. And it's crazy because it wasn't I fell in love with him, but that feeling wasn't even necessarily about him. It was just the idea of being abandoned, sort of, by someone I'd built my life around, in a way. I mean, not in a way, period. Being abandoned by someone I'd built my life around. So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that a person would let someone treat them like that. Sort of let themselves be so belittled, going so far as to agree with whatever someone's flinging at you, and not just agree with it, but kind of believe it. I didn't consider my dad a not a bad person, but not a good person, not the kind of good person you see in the movies and so I feel I had some of that inherently in me, and that he was a good person, so he knew when to call it out, sort of. He prided himself on making a good impression and being really thoughtful and emotionally available to his friends, which also I felt made it a lot harder, the fact that he was not like that with me, or that like, yeah, that my emotions were so much less important, or like exhausting, or a burden, or something. I didn't want him to be mad at me, or be a burden, or be wrong, or sort of like give these reasons to leave, because I was sort of like, the relationship I had with my father was sort of like, was the relationship I had with my father felt similar in that I played soccer because he played soccer. I was a goalkeeper because he was a goalkeeper. And I thought like, oh, if I do things my dad's interested in, like that'll, I don't know, make him love me sounds extreme, but I think that's how it felt. And like, don't be a burden. Don't rock the boat and they'll probably let you stick around. So there's a lot of that going on. That he was willing to sort of extend himself for other people, or for the people that weren't me, and not just like family and close friends, like people he didn't really know that well. And I'd see him being like so much kind of like extending kindness that I feel like I hadn't seen. Like, I don't think he intended it this way at all, but it was neglectful. And meanwhile, and I felt like my legwork wasn't strong enough to hold up two people, which then felt like I was failing us, or like I was the problem. One of the reasons I got more involved with BBXX and also started seeing a therapist was because I thought I was the problem, sort of. So I wanted to like learn everything I could. I mean, I read so many relationship books. I went to therapy because I thought I was the problem. And through therapy and through becoming more involved with BBXX and sort of like getting deeper into exploring like what positive relationships look like at first it was almost all too bright to look at. BBXX is definitely one of the reasons I started thinking about like, look, if our relationships are our lives, what is my life right now? And and if I died tomorrow, is this how would I be happy with my decisions? Will I be happy with how I lived? And, no. It took me a minute to like accept what answering that question meant. But the idea that our wellness and our happiness and our like most basic and important sense of fulfillment comes from the relationships in our lives. It was just basically the answer to a lot of those questions was no, I would not be happy. Like, if our lives are our relationships, mine's pretty fucking shitty at this point. And I like realized that and I was like, wow, not cool. And like, I'd been in therapy for a couple years. Like, I'd been working through and processing a lot of this stuff and like taking in on a deeper level a lot more of the resources that BBXX provides. And it was crazy that I realized for the first time I could be happier without this person than with them. Like, that thought had never occurred to me. Because I also don't think I ever really stopped to consider what a healthy relationship was, because I'm not sure because I don't feel like I had a really good example growing up. Like, I talked a little bit about my dad, but like between my parents there are 7 marriages. So and no one's married now. So it's not like someone like finally figured it out and got healthy. They're just like, growing up it was all very I didn't have an example of a good one, or a couple who communicated well, or who communicated without kind of gaslighting and resentment, and that you could stop and like say what you wanted, or even, God forbid, what you needed, and that the other person would hear that, take it in, and react productively. Um, that was a new concept. And I mean, because just the idea of kind of putting your needs out there was scary. So after, a couple years of therapy and getting more involved in like kind of seeking out a lot of the resources that seeking out the resources that BBXX was offering that I sort of like theoretically agreed with in the beginning and then sort of actively and actionably started implementing in my life. All this sort of like came to a head and became one. And I sort of like realized, and there was something wrong, something very like, we didn't talk about anything. We didn't talk about the future. I was seeing these relationships that I sort of read about and theorized about, like manifested right in front of me, and it made it real in a way that like I think without all of that knowledge, I'm not sure I ever would have seen it or understood it on a deeper level, like on a human level. Because prior to that, when I saw really good relationships, I was sort of like, yeah, that's nice, but that's out of there, and that's over there, and that's out of reach for me. Like I'll never be able to reach that. Which is like, what do you mean? You're human, of course you can. But like I just didn't have any kind of, no, I didn't have context for it. So like the way I would kind of fold and buckle and agree that like I was stupid and I was insensitive, I didn't really understand that that was wrong or that it could be any different. Like hearing other people's stories and a lot of the like support and affirmation that I got from BBXX, it was like it's cliche, but it was like turning a corner in that like, no, actually the failure would be staying with this person and being miserable. What is beautiful about BBXX in a way, and the way it offers support, is that it's a it's an ongoing conversation, and it's anchoring and sort of and it's anchoring and it's steady in a way that's like, yes, you have to respect yourself and you have to respect others, and you like, I don't know, it sort of anchored me in humanity, and that like not only are my emotions real and worthy sort of thing, but like once I realized that, I was like, oh fuck, well like how do I do this now? kind of thing. And just, nobody's perfect, there's no like one right way, but like I guess it just taught me that, or not, it kind of proved that when the best place for things to be is sort of dynamic. So if I were to go back and sort of give advice to myself at that time, I think a big one would be like, you're never too busy to talk about this kind of stuff in a relationship, because I feel like that was something we let happen a lot because it was easier. Like there's always time to address this kind of stuff no matter how busy you are. Like so I think I would tell some of the advice I would give myself would be to like take the time and be with it, because if you don't, it'll be 5 years later and you'll be pissed you wasted so much time. That and I don't know, hang out with your friends. Make sure, I don't know, for me it would be something like, make sure your world is bigger than this person. We didn't hang out with other people, and it was super isolating. See your friends, address your shit, listen to BBXX.